In the early 2000s, the major automakers had a clear consensus on electric vehicles. The technology was an impractical dead end. General Motors even recalled and crushed its own electric car program, the EV1. Against that backdrop, two engineers named Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning decided to start a new car company in 2003. They called it Tesla Motors. They had no factory, no manufacturing infrastructure, and operated entirely out of a cramped, rented office space. They also had no prototype. To build one, they needed capital. Elon Musk stepped in during their initial funding round with a $6.5 million investment, providing the cash required to actually start engineering a vehicle. The founders intended to mass-produce a vehicle that ran entirely on lithium-ion batteries, yet their physical reality consisted of a handful of employees working back-to-back at folding tables. The engineering hurdles were massive, but their primary battle was psychological. They were trying to raise money and attract talent in an industry that universally agreed their failure was inevitable. To survive, Tesla adopted a counterintuitive approach. Rather than trying to build a cheap, low-range commuter car, which was what most people associated with electric vehicles at the time, they decided to build a high-priced luxury sports car. They called it the Roadster. It could accelerate to 60 miles per hour in 3.7 seconds and had a range of 244 miles on a single charge. It looked and performed exactly like a high-end supercar. This diagram shows the financial logic they called their master plan. The strategy was to sell the Roadster in low volumes at a high profit margin, and then use that revenue to fund the development of a medium-volume luxury sedan. Without the billions of dollars in backing that legacy automakers enjoyed, this sequential funding model was the only mathematically viable way a startup could afford to eventually reach the mass market. Executing that plan required actually manufacturing the car. As they began ordering custom transmissions and carbon fiber body panels, the physical cost of producing each Roadster rapidly climbed past their initial projections. Production deadlines came and went. The complex supply chain delayed deliveries, and the millions of dollars they had raised were quickly depleting to cover the overhead of an idle assembly line. The premium sports car was designed to generate the cash needed to save the electric vehicle. Instead, the extreme cost of building it was actively driving the company toward bankruptcy. Then, the 2008 global financial crisis hit. Credit dried up entirely and the capital markets froze, making it impossible to secure external investment. Inside Tesla, the macroeconomic collapse mirrored a micro-crisis. The Roadster was still facing severe production delays, the executive team was fracturing, and the corporate bank accounts were essentially empty. Management had to make drastic cuts to keep the doors open. They laid off a significant portion of their workforce, a painful decision that only extended their financial runway by a few short weeks. With venture capital firms refusing to take calls, Elon Musk liquidated his remaining personal assets. He poured the last of his own private wealth into the company to meet payroll, ignoring standard financial advice. By the end of 2008, the situation had stripped away any grand corporate strategy. Keeping the company alive was strictly a matter of personal financial endurance against the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. Amidst this chaos in the fall of 2008, the board removed the original founders from leadership, and Musk officially stepped in as CEO to take direct control of the failing automaker. He inherited a fragile organization, with barely enough operating capital to last through the end of the month. Every decision carried the weight of imminent closure. However, seeing the CEO risk personal bankruptcy convinced a small group of investors to participate in a final round of emergency funding. That bridge loan provided the exact amount of cash needed to finally finish the production line and start shipping Roadsters to early buyers. Those early days of scrambling for payroll stand in stark contrast to the millions of vehicles they produce today. The fragile machine that nearly caused their financial ruin in a rented office space eventually became a permanent fixture orbiting in space.
In 2010, the American auto industry was still crawling out of a deep recession. To survive, an electric car startup named Tesla did something no American carmaker had attempted since Ford, nearly 100 years earlier. They launched an initial public offering, or IPO, selling shares to the public to raise emergency cash. The capital raised from that offering was funneled directly into a single project, the 2012 Model S. At the time, this luxury sedan was the company's only path to a sustainable future. The Model S became an immediate commercial success, winning Motor Trend's Car of the Year and proving that electric vehicles could compete with high-end luxury brands. The revenue from these early sales pulled Tesla back from the edge of bankruptcy. Surviving the Model S launch didn't lead to a period of corporate stability. Instead, the company moved immediately into its next high-stakes milestone, cementing a strategy of betting its entire existence on the next impossible goal. By 2014, Tesla pivoted toward a software-first engineering philosophy. They began developing vehicles as mobile computing platforms, where the car's physical performance was increasingly dictated by the code running in its central processor. This approach led to the release of Autopilot. Through over-the-air internet updates, Tesla could push new software directly to vehicles in the field, fundamentally altering how the car steered, accelerated, and braked within its lane. While traditional automakers relied on expensive physical recalls to fix mechanical issues, Tesla could deploy a software patch overnight to thousands of vehicles simultaneously. This ability to disrupt the industry through code created a sense of invincibility within the company. Engineers began to believe that software agility could bypass the traditional slow-moving laws of physical manufacturing. In 2015, Tesla leveraged this confidence to attempt a radical reinvention of the luxury SUV. The Model X featured extreme mechanical complexity, most notably its double-hinged Falcon Wing doors. The difficulty of mass-producing these doors stalled the entire assembly line, turning a specific design choice into a massive production bottleneck. Software updates could not correct misaligned metal frames or failing physical sensors. As manufacturing costs rose, the physical reality of the hardware proved much harder to iterate than code. Elon Musk later admitted that the vehicle was over-engineered, noting that the Model X suffered from having too many fancy things added all at once. Because the assembly line was failing to produce vehicles at scale, Tesla's cash reserves began to drop at an unsustainable rate, while competitors waited for the company to run out of money. The Model X showed that software logic has limits. No matter how advanced the code, it cannot override the weight, friction, and precision required by physical steel. With its cash reserves thinning, Tesla faced an ultimatum: transition from a luxury niche player to a high-volume manufacturer, or exhaust its remaining capital. In 2016, 10 years after the first master plan was published, Tesla unveiled the Model 3. Within a single week, 325,000 people placed reservations. This chart shows the financial weight of that anticipation, translating those early reservations into a projected $14 billion in potential sales. The manufacturing reality was far more chaotic. The complex automated assembly lines they designed were failing to produce cars at the necessary pace, leaving the company trapped in what leadership called production hell. As cash reserves dwindled, financial analysts began estimating the exact date the company would run out of money and face bankruptcy. To solve the bottlenecks, management moved directly onto the assembly lines, with Musk sleeping on the factory floor to oversee repairs around the clock. The survival of the company now depended on mastering the brutal physics of mass manufacturing to meet the demand they had created. To stop the cash burn, Tesla set a specific public manufacturing target. They had to produce 5,000 Model 3s in a single week. They expanded operations at the Fremont factory to their absolute limits, even constructing a massive temporary tent structure to house an additional assembly line. In mid-2018, the effort reached its peak. The factory successfully sustained a rate of 5,000 Model 3 units in 7 days. Reaching this milestone shifted the narrative from a company on the brink of collapse to one capable of large-scale manufacturing. Hitting this number confirmed that their manufacturing model was viable, providing the blueprint for global expansion. To reduce shipping costs and delivery times, Tesla began a strategy of localizing production by duplicating their factory model in major international markets. The first major replication occurred in Asia, launching a massive gigafactory in Shanghai. They followed this by establishing a European manufacturing hub in Berlin. The expansion continued in Texas, completing a decentralized manufacturing network across 3 continents. This global production matrix bypassed regional supply chain bottlenecks, maintaining high delivery volumes globally. To capture the domestic SUV market, Tesla introduced the Model Y, a larger vehicle built on the success of the Model 3. This diagram illustrates the design's efficiency. The Model Y shares an estimated 75% of its parts with the existing Model 3.
By only integrating the remaining 25% of new components, they scaled production of the Model Y without repeating previous manufacturing bottlenecks. The vehicle saw rapid adoption, becoming one of the top-selling cars globally shortly after its release by utilizing a single engineering platform. By 2020, Tesla had captured the global electric vehicle market. The Model 3 had become the best-selling electric car in world history, and the Model Y expanded that footprint by offering a highly popular mass-market SUV design. With over 1 million vehicle sales crossed and stock valuations soaring, traditional automakers and industry analysts assumed the company would finally play it safe. The expectation was that they would refine their lineup and start acting like a mature, predictable legacy car manufacturer. Then, they rejected that expectation. They unveiled a vehicle that looked as though a child had drawn a science fiction tank. The Cybertruck challenged the decades-long dominance of the Ford F-Series by treating pickup design as a geometry problem rather than an aesthetic one. It was a signal that the company had moved past standard automotive design rules. To build it, they threw out conventional stamped aluminum and opted for a heavy, bullet-resistant stainless steel exoskeleton. To prove its durability on stage, an executive threw a metal ball at the vehicle's so-called armor glass window. Instead of bouncing off, the glass immediately spiderwebbed into a massive crater on live television. The fallout was instant. Critics labeled the entire project a failure, predicting the harsh angles and public humiliation would alienate any serious truck buyer. Yet, within days, hundreds of thousands of people placed reservations. The consumer demand outpaced the negative press. Emerging from a spectacular onstage failure with a massive backlog of orders proved a crucial point. They could ignore conventional market wisdom and still dictate consumer behavior. While the public debated the physical angles of the Cybertruck, the actual value of the company was compounding inside the vehicles. Every car sold was equipped with a 360-degree array of sensors, feeding a massive, constantly updating digital network. Elon Musk stated clearly that people were misunderstanding the core business. He declared that his operation was, at its foundation, an artificial intelligence company. Their standard autopilot software, which initially maintained a lane and speed, was rapidly trained into the full self-driving beta. FSD is an advanced software system designed to navigate complex city streets, stoplights, and intersections autonomously. While autopilot assists drivers, its underlying architecture is built for the robotaxi, a planned fleet of driverless transit vehicles designed to end personal car ownership. To the company, the cars themselves are secondary. The millions of Model 3s and Ys on the road act as a decentralized hardware fleet, constantly feeding driving data back to a centralized AI brain to perfect that software. Once that AI brain became sophisticated enough to navigate chaotic city streets, it needed a new physical form to navigate the human world. In 2021, they announced Optimus, a bipedal robot designed to take over repetitive, dangerous manual labor. Mass-producing a humanoid worker pushes the company's output past the scope of the automotive industry. Ford and Toyota build cars. This operation is building autonomous labor. Simultaneously, they scaled up their energy infrastructure, deploying massive commercial battery storage systems and solar roofs to power these growing digital and mechanical fleets. While competitors were busy trying to build a better electric sedan, a fully integrated robotics and energy syndicate was assembled right in front of them. A coordinated three-front assault threatens their valuation. First, global demand for electric vehicles has cooled, slowing exponential growth. Second, Chinese rivals erased the technological gap, offering cheaper advanced vehicles. Finally, regulators are launching intense investigations into their autonomous driving software. Simply building and selling electric sedans is no longer a viable strategy to outrun these converging global pressures. Tesla currently sits between becoming the defining technological empire of the century and collapsing as an overvalued software startup. Faced with shrinking margins and fierce rivals, leadership rejects a retreat into safe car production. Instead, they are pushing all their chips into the center of the table. They are staking hundreds of billions of dollars in market cap and the sheer survival of the brand on the unproven promise that they can successfully deploy humanoid robots and a global network of driverless robotaxis. When these systems meet the global market, we will see if the cars we've been driving were ever the actual product to begin with.
If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We explore the rise, fall, and hidden stories behind the world's biggest companies.